1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast sound check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Tuesday show live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast sound check. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It is a rare Tuesday edition following Monday night's game in which Everton fought back to claim a point against Leeds United. I am your host, Ian Croll. Alongside me is the Echo's Everton FC reporter, Chris Beesley. We are live on YouTube and we are here to look back at last night's game. The post-match show was recorded following Simon Hooper's final whistle. That was with me and Tony Scott. So if you haven't already, go and give that a watch, go and give it a listen. And if you can stomach it today, stick with us for this extra edition of the Royal Blue Podcast. I can assure viewers that Chris has had his sandwiches, so he is fed and watered, fully prepared for today's show. Chris, how are things? All good?
Well, yeah, after the second half, very much the game of two halves we'll go into, won't we? I thought very disappointing, very poor show again. First half. One observation. Yes, it was cold last night, but a lot of people going, "Oh, it's freezing." We're in January in the UK. It was about 5 degrees. You see all these NFL stadiums with no roof on the place and probably -10 or something. People like freezing there. I don't know. I've been much colder at football. It was cold, but it was much glad it was rather it was the way it was last night than the way it was this morning with the wind and the rain.
You're either just really hard as nails or old school. That's all I can say what it is. Bit of both. Okay, well, obviously we're going to speak about the Leeds game, Chris. One thing I thought we could do, which would be interesting, was obviously you do your player ratings for the Liverpool Echo website. I did a player ratings for the Royal Blue YouTube channel. Thought we'd compare the two.
Okay.
I thought that'd be interesting.
All right.
So I have looked at yours since, and we've got some of the same, and we've got some that was quite completely wide.
Okay.
So I thought that would make a good debate. So we'll do that as we go on. Before we do start, just a quick word for the sponsor, NordVPN. To get the best discounts off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/EFC. The link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. And to find out more, to sign up to the plan, the link is in the podcast episode description box. Last night, because we were running a bit of a shorter show, because I wanted to go to bed and Tony needed to get the last 3 in. I didn't read out as many comments as I would have liked, so we'll try and read out as many as possible in this show. So, Chris, I'll just refer to my notes here. It is 5 home games now without a win, consisting of 2 league defeats, 3, I guess, if you count the cup, and then 2 draws. In any one of those games, can you honestly look back and think Everton deserved to win any of those?
Maybe not to it. But last night was the closest they came. It was a strange old game, wasn't it? And that I think both teams could have won it. Both teams could have lost it. Looking at that run, Arsenal should have at least had the chance to get a draw, and the Premier League have said that retrospectively, in that Tierno Barry should have had the penalty there after Lieber brought him down in the area. Wasn't given at the time, and then they've reviewed that and said that should have been given. Brentford was a mess, wasn't it? Of course, so nothing there. Wolves doing all right for about an hour, weren't they? And then things sort of were already on a slippery slope before the 2 red cards. Sunderland was poor down to the bare bones, and fortunate to at least take it into extra time. So I think last night was definitely the most winnable of those opportunities. It's an interesting one in terms of people are talking about this, and I'm not having it at all that Hill Dickinson Stadium is any sort of major issue in this for me. People got short memories. Everton won 5 home games last season. That's the joint lowest in their entire history, along with 57-58 season. Obviously, half of that's on Sean Dyche, half of that's on David Moyes. 2 wins on Dyche in the first half of the season, 3 home wins on the Moyes in the second half of the season. I think what David Moyes has done, of course, as we all know, and after the Villa game, that's 10 away wins since he came back. So it's unfortunate that obviously I've said this before on the podcast, the vast majority of fans, as with any club, are obviously the home-going fans, and obviously there's a third extra in there now with it being the expanded stadium. So you've got your nearly 50,000 regulars or whatever, and then you've got your hardcore crew who, a couple thousand, 3,000, whatever, are going to most of your ways. And like myself and Joe Thomas, they're getting to see the full picture, whereas it must be frustrating when you're only seeing the home games. But for me, it's far more down to how the team is set up, and it's a tactical thing and something that David Moyes and the players have to get over, rather than being the atmosphere. I mean, there's going to be teething problems wherever you go after a stadium move. I think Moyes and a lot of people have alluded to that. That's only natural. But I think, as we saw last night, when the moments were there, when Everton were in the ascendancy, or there was a chance, it's just as loud, if not louder, than Goodison Park, and it's the way it was. I think people can sort of get the rose-tinted glasses and think, I think I saw a Leeds fan saying, we as in Leeds would have lost that at Goodison last night. No, I'm not too sure about that. I think people obviously will say these things, but for me, anyone who says Hill Dickinson Stadium is anything but a huge asset for Everton is totally missing the point here. It's up to the team to make it a fortress. I think everything's geared up for it for being a success, from Dan Meese saying he wanted that ultimate home field advantage in the way he's designed it, the incredible way it's set on the waterfront. I mean, it couldn't have been better for Evertonians. It's up to the team to sort out that home form for me. So it's not a falling of the building of the stadium itself.
I reckon you've been reading my Twitter, because I tweeted the exact same things last night.
I did
it's
see
not
your
the
tweet,
surroundings. It is the players. It is the manager. Take full responsibility. I mean, they never play at Villa Park all the time, but they managed to get a result there. I was trying to make note of some of the questions and comments as you were speaking there, but I was listening to you.
Yeah.
Don't worry. But there's a couple of corkers which I'm going to read out, but there is one which was submitted before you started really speaking about the stadium. So the YouTube channel Planet Liquid Full says, it feels sterile inside the stadium. I can't even go to the toilet without it being an ordeal. The whole experience feels flat, but it can be improved. So that's probably in disagreement to what you think, and definitely what I think. The new stadium is obviously a change in routine for 50,000, 52,000 Everton fans. You have to compare to what we've been used to. So for me personally, I'm starting to get used to the new routine. Whether other people are going to take a little bit longer, I don't know. But the atmosphere and the calls for why is the atmosphere so bad, it's got to be, a reaction or a representation to what happens on the pitch. And if you go 1-0 down, there's going to be frustration. There's going to be a bit of anxiety and angst about what is going to come next.
Yeah.
So, that was exactly the same at Goodison Park.
Yeah. I totally agree. On a lighter note, but it's obviously something that's a natural function. The toilets, it can be an ordeal. There's one by us, and it takes ages. When I go at half time as well, I'm queuing up for ages. But unfortunately, that's the case in so many stadiums everywhere. I've been to modern stadiums. I mean,
get on to Dan Meese and blame him.
Yeah, I can't blame that. I don't know. You just have loads of toilets and no seats. Every people moaning that you should have built. To be fair,
we're going off on a tangent here, but the toilet in the south stand by entrance 6, it's very small. Yeah,
we are going off on a tangent here, but I remember last night. So I was queuing up, and in the one that is closest to where I go, one of the urinals is significantly lower, presumably for children to use. And a lot of fellas weren't using it. They didn't want to go on the one on the end. So that maybe if there was a design flaw, it was in this particular gents, because there's a lower urinal on the end, and some of them didn't want to use it. So that was obviously slowing things up more. But
maybe that's just common courtesy for the youngsters who go to the game.
I don't know. No, I just don't think they fancied it. But yeah, on a more serious note, I mean, it's I said, I've been up and down the country, and new grounds, old grounds, whatever. It's a reoccurring theme, unfortunately, in terms of queuing up for the gents at half time. Not too sure about the ladies. I have to ask some of the other fans about that one. But yeah, in terms of the atmosphere, yeah, I mean, again, going back to this idea about Goodison Park, it's the same. And it's this, and to be fair, it's the same. I mean, I used to cover Liverpool as well, and it's the same across the park. It obviously isn't anymore. The same at Anfield as well. I mean, the fans react to the moments within the game. It's not always all singing, all dancing, huge volume all of the time. You know, there has to be some sort of spark on the pitch to prompt that. And it was exactly the same at Goodison. I've had people say, as much as everybody loved Goodison and was so emotional about using it, I've actually heard people say in the latter years, it was almost like a coffin for Everton in terms of with the environment. And then obviously the team was struggling on the pitch and it wasn't great. So, yeah, it's just lazy for me in terms of just saying, like you said, words like sterile. I certainly wouldn't use that for the atmosphere. I've seen it's been great in moments. Obviously, the Crystal Palace game, you could actually sense the moment that turned. You know, it's when Moyes and Garner both got the yellow card and the lad for Palace didn't retreat. That was almost like the Phil Neville tackle on Ronaldo-esque spark that it needed that day. And you could actually see and hear when the atmosphere turned. And unfortunately, if they're not seeing it on the pitch, you won't get that. But there were moments last night, yeah, it was after the equaliser, and then the place was rocking again. And you can imagine if Idrissa Gueye's chance had just gone in there, I mean, it would have been in a totally different scenario, and I'm sure it would have been bouncing. So, yeah, it is an issue in that I think. Obviously, a lot of people are in, like you say, getting used to the routines. You might not necessarily be sat with the same people who you were with one year, but I mean, come on. Scousers or Evertonians, such shrinking violets that are not going to sing because they don't know the person who sat next to him. I think that again a bit of a cheap excuse, really. So yeah, I think fans at every football club, and Everton's no exception, are going to react to what's in front of them on the pitch, and it's up to the players and the team to sort of inspire that. You're never going to have wall to wall noise for the 90 minutes, and yeah, for me, yeah, you can't really blame it on the stadium. And like you say, we're all getting used to these new routines. But yeah, it's not a failing for me in terms of the design and anything to do with the stadium in that respect.
Okay, we've had a comment from Brian C, who says, probably in reference to the fact when we were talking about going to the toilet, says, is this conversation for real? And I can assure you, Brian, it was real. That's what we were speaking about.
Yeah.
But we did go off on a tangent. I assume Brian is a long-time listener and a first-time commenter.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your comment nevertheless. Did you see it as, what did you see it as in terms of the balance? Did you see it as a positive that we managed to fight back and, come away with a point? Or did you see it as a negative the way we started the game? And you can come on to team selection with that if you had disagreed with anything that Moyes did.
Well, it was a big opportunity, and beforehand you could say it was an opportunity missed in terms of putting down the marker and attempt to climb up the table. But given the way that the evening panned out, I probably was relieved in the end, and I was probably happier afterwards with the point than necessarily if you said, would you take the point before? And I said no, I think Everton should be going for the win here. 100%. But the way it panned out and the way they were so bad in the first half, and to be credit to Leeds, the way Leeds were good. I mean, I think I heard a stat saying they had the 10 shots in the first half, which is the most any team has had in 45 minutes at Hill Dickinson Stadium since it opened. So, okay, I think there was 3 on target. And Daniel Farker said that he felt Dominic Calvert-Lewin should have scored that chance, and that would have probably put them out of sight.
I mean, I said this to Tony last night. It was a typical Dominic Calvert-Lewin performance. He did very well in the first half. He ran the line. He caused all sorts of problems for our 2 centre-backs, but then goes and misses a sitter.
Yeah, and ultimately, a lot of the narrative, that was another thing everyone was saying before the game, going, oh, it's nailed on, Calvert-Lewin's going to score, blah, blah, blah. Yet we were all talking about Tierno Barry in the end. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's missed a big chance. And Barry, who didn't have many opportunities all night, obviously he had the one that Darlow clawed away with the outside of his boot before he did equalise, takes that big chance. And we're all talking about Tierno Barry. Very much the old cliched game of two halves, in that Everton were very poor, not at the races in the first half. Although they actually they had a quick start, but then that quickly evaporated and Leeds were on top. Second half, obviously, he made the 2 substitutions at half time. David Moyes said he introduced both of those players, Kane and Dewsbury Hall, and Jared Branthwaite earlier than he would have liked to have done, but obviously that made the difference in the second half. But it'd be an interesting one going forward where they go from this now, because I don't know. Moyes, I don't know how often he's used the 3 centre-back system. I don't think he used it loads. I mean, as he reverted to 4 again in the latter stages again. He went back to the flat back 4, didn't he? But yeah, it's actually a good dilemma now after basically being down to the bare bones for several weeks, and then all of a sudden next week Brighton, you've got your 4 centre backs all available and all vying for places. I mean, is Jake O'Brien, despite what we say, is he going back to right back? Does Michael Keane's arguably the most consistent defender all season, but is there any way back for him? I don't know if there is. I mean, is he going to ease Jared Branthwaite's return to the side? It's a real positive. That's one positive that's come out last night, is that he's got those 4 centre backs all vying for a place now.
Yeah, I thought it was obviously an honest admission from Moyes that he didn't want to use probably Branthwaite and Kane and Dewsbury. I don't know if did he reference them to by name, or did he just say those players?
He'd want to bring them on a bit later if he did.
Well, the ideal scenario would have been Everton 2-3-0 up, and you bring them on, to see out the game. But obviously, if anything, with being 1-0 down, they changed the game in Everton's favour.
Yeah.
Well, should we compare our player ratings?
I'm going into this blind. You've seen him.
I know, it's a little bit unfair, isn't it? So we'll obviously start off with goalkeeper Jordan Pickford. Let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with mine or Chris's.
They'll probably disagree with both.
Okay, well, Jordan Pickford, you gave him a 6.
Yeah.
I also gave him a 6.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't think Leeds had a couple of chances. Usually Jordan manages to make a world-class save throughout a game. He didn't necessarily have to do that, did he? But his kicking was really poor, I thought, Chris. There was times where I thought he was a little bit brain dead, just kicking the ball long and giving possession of the ball away. And I just thought, not necessarily saying you need to play out from the back, but you need to be a little bit more cleverer in what you do. So I think 6, fair enough. We both agree on that. Nathan Patterson, you gave him a 6.
Yeah, okay.
I also gave him a 6 as well. I was contemplating a 6 or a 7 because I thought he did okay, and I thought
did all right again, Pato. Yeah.
But I just don't think, in the end, I thought it's not enough for a 7. I don't think he created enough going forward, and he was caught out a little bit. But I think that was mainly because he didn't have much protection in front of him with Dwight McNeil. Yeah,
I thought he was decent. Probably, obviously he couldn't get closer to his marker for the goal. You can't blame him for the Leeds goal, but he was sort of caught out of it there. So I think yes. So yeah, at the moment, we're doing all right there.
Right, I've got a load of questions that I've made a note of, so we will come on to them. Next is Vitaly Mikalenko. Yeah. We both give him a 5.
Yeah, I gave him a 4 at half time, and I bumped him up to a 5.
He struggled, didn't he? And I think with Mikalenko, I mentioned this to Tony last night, you know what you're going to get with him. He's not technically good on the ball. He's not technically gifted. The best of you when you see Mikalenko is when he's got one job to do, and it's to stop a winger down that left-hand side.
Or Salah or someone like that.
Yeah, as long as he's got one job to do, he'll do it. He hasn't got the ability to do both.
He really disappointed me with his distribution last night. I know he's not known for being amazing in that respect, but I thought it was poor, and he was sort of getting run ragged. First half, he obviously tightened up a bit. Second half, but yeah, disappointed by Mikalenko. Although it is intriguing that he hasn't signed a new contract yet, because even if ultimately you want to upgrade long term, it seems strange that he's obviously in the last 6 months of his contract. Now you don't want to lose him for nothing. So that one's curious, but yeah, I thought it was poor last night.
Okay, James Tarkowski, the Everton captain, you gave him a 6. I gave him a 5.
Okay.
So not too much difference there. The only reason I really gave him a 5 is because, we've had this conversation multiple times over the past couple of weeks. James Tarkowski is the Everton captain. He's the one who's got to take responsibility. He's the one the other players have got to look to. And again, I just thought he was getting riled up by Dominic Calvert-Lewin. And obviously the first half, Dominic Calvert-Lewin won that battle over both.
Yeah. Him and Jake O'Brien. Yeah.
Both centre-backs. So he gets a 5 from me. You give him a 6.
Okay.
Jake O'Brien, we both gave a 6.
Yeah.
I thought he had the torrid time in the first half. Probably improved in the second half, and I don't know whether that was because spent a period of the second half with 3 at the back.
Yeah, is that the first time they've conceded a Premier League goal when Jake O'Brien's been centre back? I'm not sure. I think it could have been.
You might be right.
You've said it had a real battle, both physical battle and battle of wits, I thought, with Calvert-Lewin first half, but like you said, did improve after the break.
Right, this next one is the one that's going to have the heavy debate. You gave Idrissa Gana Gueye an 8,
Yeah.
and I gave him a 6.
Okay.
Second half, he was in a more advanced position. He gets the assist, he hits the bar, but I don't think that was enough based on his first half performance, which was really poor. I thought to bump it up to an 8, obviously, in my opinion. I think maybe you could argue for a 7 for his, everything that he did in the second half. But I'm just a little bit with Gana Gueye. There's definitely a place for him in the team. Is it in that advanced role? Now, I know he created the goal with the assist, so I'm probably going against like the obvious there, but I don't know whether he's not the playmaker, he's not the advanced, he's not the one who should be creating the chances and scoring the goals, and that's just my opinion. I thought he had a really poor first half. Yeah,
I think I only gave him possibly a 5 at half time. It's an interesting one because I wouldn't necessarily have started with him. I thought Ndiaye was a shoe-in to come back, especially with Grealish's injury. But
harsh on Roll.
Yeah, because to be fair, Merlin Roll probably had his best performance for Everton at Aston Villa. So yeah, I'd have probably eased him back in. But to be fair, yeah, I thought he was fighting fires a lot in the first half. But you think about, he's come back from winning the AFCON, got the big assist there to win it for Senegal against Morocco, and like you say, he's probably not the one expected to be making the chances for you. So I thought that was a real big moment, to be fair. That's why I bumped him up. Obviously, he could have won it as well. But, getting to the byline, he showed the wingers how it's done. The 36-year-old defensive midfielder, as it were, showing the wingers how it's done and putting that cross in for Barry. So I thought that was a pivotal moment. We'd have been talking about a defeat if it hadn't been for that, so hence why I bumped him up.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. He deserves the credit for what he did in the second half. I guess and let's face it, he's just come back from a tournament in Africa for a month, so I thought he looked a little bit leggy and a little bit tired late on in the game, but I guess I'm just looking at that player rating in isolation. We both agree on James Garner. We both gave him a 6. I think he was probably a quieter game for James from what we're used to, but I think that probably has a lot to do with the overall team performance, and he probably wasn't able to affect it because of that.
Yeah, he wasn't as influential as he's been. He's been immense the last few weeks and obviously signed a new contract. So yeah, I think that's fair enough. Like you said, the overall team performance wasn't really there for him to whip those balls in and create something. So yeah.
Dwight McNeil.
Yeah.
This is going to cause a bit of an issue, isn't it? You gave him a 5.
Yeah.
I mean, whether you think my player rating is harsh, I think yours is quite lenient. To be honest, I thought he was really poor. I've gave my case for defence for him as well as against him. Yeah, in yesterday's podcast.
Yeah,
don't think it's all down to him being played out of position, but he was poor yesterday, Chris. I know you have to look back at the goal that we conceded. He was just jogging back.
Yeah.
One of the things that David Moyes has said to all fans is, well, Dwight McNeil's in the team for his work rate. There was nothing showed there. I gave him a 3.
Okay, wow. We did get hooked at the interval. Obviously did Harrison Armstrong, although that was more about obviously the tactical reshuffle. Yeah, it was strange. I'd have played McNeil on the left and Ndiaye on the right, because Ndiaye's ambidextrous and has proven this season he can be just as effective on the right as he is on the left. Whereas I think McNeil is far better, and he's so left-footed. It was almost painful at times last night in that. You see, he does put a shift in, although that obviously the footage is quite damning in terms of jogging back for the goal. But what was frustrating for me with him being on the right is that his turning circle is so big because he can't even use his right foot at all. There's a lot of left-footed players over the years who've been very left-footed. It's probably because they're a rare commodity, so they less have to use the right. Whereas if you're a right-footed player, you use your left as well. You tend to, but because he just can't use his right or chooses not to at all, he goes on these huge arcs just to work the angle, and it's almost painful to watch at times. Whereas I'd have put him on the left, and maybe it'd be interesting to see how it goes going forward now with no Grealish. Does he put McNeil on the left, or does McNeil come out the side? Because surely Ndiaye's him, whatever, but he can play on either flank. So I was a little bit surprised they weren't the other way around.
Based on everything you just said there, from McNeil's technical ability and the fact that he's being one-footed, I know you can't answer, and David Moyes said, but why do you think that he thinks McNeil on the right is the best form for Everton to do? Because like you said, Ndiaye can probably play across the front four.
Yeah.
He's that good. So why hinder one of your players who's got less technical ability and play him out of position. I mean, Tony made the argument yesterday about, well, the goal against Villa came from McNeil on the right, but actually, if you look at it, it was a mistake from Villa.
Yeah.
And the ball, McNeil was more in a central.
I'm going to say he was in a
position.
central position at that point.
It wasn't your typical wing play where he ran down the line and kind of cut inside and had that shot. That wasn't the case.
It was down the middle, wasn't it?
It was a mistake. So you're not going to get that every time from an opposition defender.
Yeah.
So I honest to God, I can't think of a phrase. It beggars belief how Moyes is persistent with that. If you're going to play him over Diblin, I can have it, but play him on the left. Give him a chance. Give him an opportunity to make the most out of what you've got in terms of your attributes, whether that's crossing the ball in from the left-hand side to the striker, or getting in a position to... We know he's got a wand of a left foot.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably the best part of his game.
Yeah.
As we've seen against Villa, he managed to force the keeper into a save and then a mistake. So I don't know whether he persists with McNeil. Tony said that he doesn't think he'll play for Everton again, which I probably think is a bit extreme.
Yeah, I'm sure he was, unless, hopefully he doesn't get injured. I'm sure he will. I can only imagine, I just said it's up to David Moyes to explain this one, but I'd have put McNeil on the left and then down the right, and I can only imagine he thought it was like, rather than sort of two changes in the team, keep McNeil on the right. But yeah, I think McNeil is much more suited, obviously, to playing as a left winger, whereas Ndai can do both. So is it going to be a curious one going forward, whether he persists with that or whether he does swap them over?
Okay, we'll finish off on the player ratings. Every single one now is the same. We matched up. So Ndai,
Armstrong,
you get a 7. Armstrong gave a 6. Obviously, he was hooked at half time. Tieno Barry was a 7. He got the goal, Chris. Yeah. Interesting point from Dave Ollie here. One of it says, I want to learn to dance like Tieno Barry. Can you pull them moves out?
Not quite the same. Yeah.
No, I think, sorry, the positive that he's in a bit of retraining form, isn't he?
Yeah, what is that? Is that 4 in 5 starts now or something like that?
5 overall, I think.
So 5 for the season. So yeah, like I said before, everyone was saying, it's nailed on, DCL, going to come back and score. But yeah, we're talking about Barry. He's the in form man. I think some people were saying about how Erling Haaland hasn't scored many recently, so steady on a bit. But yeah, if you looked at where Everton were and where Tieno Barry was, obviously at the start of December, you thought, well, no, when's he going to do it? And obviously after he broke his duck against Forest, he's followed that up. And what I did like, his last couple of goals, they've both been quite different sorts of finishes. He's got the delicate chip there, the lob to win it at Villa, relying on finesse. And it was more like a real sort of predatory finish into the roof of the net last night. So you can see he's got that confidence, he's learning. And to be fair, it's followed a similar trajectory to earlier in his career. He went to Basel in Switzerland. I believe he didn't score a league goal until after the turn of the calendar year there. So okay, it's a much different sort of level of football, much higher in the Premier League, but it's following the same sort of path. It's taken him a while to sort of find his feet and get going, but looks decent now. And you got to kind of think that if you can keep this up the rest of the season, it could be a fairly encouraging first season in England for him. And that it wasn't looking the case for just a few short weeks ago. He's come a long way in a short space of time in recent games.
The substitutions who obviously made an impact, we both gave Dewsbury Hall a 7, and we both gave Jarrod Branthwaite a 7, and we both gave Tyler Diblin a 6. Why didn't Tyler Diblin shoot when he had that opportunity?
Is it confidence or lack of?
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but from my vantage point, it looked like it was the perfect. It was obviously it was the near post, so whether you go the near post or the keeper's far post, I don't know. But he picked the wrong option, didn't he? I
thought so. Yeah, maybe he's trying to be selfless for the team, but yeah, that was the moment you wanted him to be greedy. You wanted him to take. It wouldn't have been greedy, It was. No. It looked like this was his big moment. Unfortunately, how different could it have been? I mean, I'm saying how different could it have been if Idrissa Gueye scored the winner? But if Tyler Diblin had scored the winner, I mean, that would have been a double whammy, wouldn't it? Not only would you be celebrating the win, but a huge breakthrough moment for him. He was interesting when he came on. I thought there were decent spells. Again, he's full of flicks and tricks this time. And it's almost like you wondered if he knew what he was going to do next sometimes. But that was a moment of where he should have been decisive and should have had a crack. And I think we all felt that. So yeah, it could have been like a weight off his shoulders if he just scored the winner there, and then all of a sudden we're looking going forward. Maybe it's going to be Tyler Diblin on the right and then Dye on the left. But yeah, hopefully he can take some encouragement from that. It was better than some of his other previous outings at Hildegard Stadium. We saw a bit of what he can do, and just needs to channel that bit more. But yeah, a shame he couldn't. But at least tried and had the shot for the winner, because it looked like the shot was on, doesn't it? I think that's what we all felt.
Without a doubt. We didn't mention this in last night's pod, but obviously, having watched the highlights back, first off, what did you make of Simon Hooper's performance? But do you think that the game could have been stopped for the head injury in the build-up to the Leeds goal? I mean, I've watched it back and I've listened to the commentary as well. Andy Hinchcliffe was on.
Right.
And I definitely gets a knock to the face,
right,
to the jaw,
okay.
like an elbow, and he goes down and he's clutching his head. Now, I understand like that feigning an injury, that you see that a lot with head injuries, don't they? So to force the referee to stop the game. But I think if that was the other way round and it got stopped, I guess you'd be a little bit frustrated. But either way, Ndai's clutching, he's been hit in the face, he's clutching his head. Simon Hooper looks over and he ignores it. I don't know whether you've managed to watch that back or what you think.
Yeah, I've not seen much of it. I seen it at the time. I didn't think it was a foul or anything like that. But like you say, if it's a head injury, I mean, you are supposed to stop, aren't you, for the head injury? There was quite a bit of play in between that.
It was, but it was in the same build-up,
yeah,
same
it was in
process.
the same move, wasn't it? So I don't think he was in any danger, but it's up to the referee, isn't it? Discretion in terms of Hooper's overall display. I think a lot of people were frustrated. There's no sort of like absolute howlers, but it was just sort of people said that he's not applying the advantage rule and stuff like that.
There was a couple of occasions
like that,
where he could have maybe let the play run and he brought it back with a free kick.
Yeah, he's not up there with the Cavanas and the Pawsons of the world, but I don't know. It's just I think people are generally thinking that his levels aren't great. To be honest, I haven't got any complaints in terms of the goal, but I know. I mean, if it is a head injury, you're supposed to stop. But then I don't know if the ref thinks he's just been banged in the cheek or something like that. It's not like he's concussed or anything like that. So yeah. For me, I can't complain about that, but I just felt in his general refereeing of the game, I mean, happens so often. Could have been better. I think there was a weird one in the corner actually when the ball burst, and a few people were a bit perplexed about what had gone on there. But
he gave the ball back to
Leeds, I think they have to do that now, don't they? So yeah.
Interesting question from Kraft Matthew.
Okay.
Says, any thoughts on the Kane and Dewsbury Hall reaction to Diblin's missed chance?
I don't know. Did you not see it?
So
No.
So Matthew says it seemed to be a bit over the top. He defo needs encouragement rather than criticism. I don't know whether it was because of the chance. It probably contributed to it, but I think when Diblin came on, he was trying to beat men, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And maybe doing a little bit too much and not either crossing the ball in when he should have or shouldn't. He should have passed it when he should have, and he's ended up losing the ball. Kane and Dewsbury all had a good go at him.
All right.
I think Matthew's point here is, does he need... it seems like he's the type of player that needs an arm around the shoulder, a bit of encouragement rather than a bit of a
rollicking shall we say,
with an R.
Yeah. I must admit I didn't see that. From my conversations with Kane Dewsbury, maybe it's different, innit? The old once when she crossed the white line, he's a very articulate, measured individual. I didn't see that moment. So yeah, I think Tyler Diblin probably does need the arm around the shoulder. But like I said, doing an Arsene Wenger, I didn't see it. It seems out of character, just from what I know from my limited dealings with Kane and Dewsbury Hall, to think that he would be berating a younger teammate in such fashion. But I didn't see that. And the one, I'm not saying it didn't happen. Obviously, people have seen what they saw, and you have to get the lip readers in or whatever. But he just probably needs that encouragement. And I don't say it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine that Kane and Dewsbury Hall would be saying things untoward to a younger teammate.
Okay, I'll address some of the questions now.
Yeah.
So Emma EFC has got one directly for you, Chris.
Wow.
What does Chris think the issue is with Asnu? He had a great cameo against Sunderland. Moyes was very reluctant to praise him after the game, and we haven't seen much of the kid since.
What he's the line that he keeps repeating, isn't it? Is he doesn't think he's physically quite ready. I mean, it made me laugh. I can't remember who said this. It was somebody. Hope I don't get into trouble for this, but because somebody else said this on X on Twitter, saying Moyes keeps banging on about Adam Asnu can't get a game. And he's saying Mikalenko, who is getting a game, is built like Ariana Grande. So,
wow.
I mean, that's maybe a bit of a tongue-in-cheek, but, he's not... I think the point, obviously, the serious point that he's trying to make is that Mikalenko isn't some physically imposing player. I think he's actually quite very tough in his own way, but, he's not got a huge build about him. But, yeah, that seems to be the line that Moyes has said from the start, is that Asnu isn't physically quite there yet. He believes he is a prospect, somebody who offers a bit of potential in the future, one for the future, but not quite there at the moment. Yeah, he was encouraging against Sunderland, but again, that was in the more advanced role, wasn't it? Left winger rather than left back. But I think we mentioned this last week. Somebody was suggesting, it was one of the contributors, weren't they? They were saying, because what I just said about the centre backs earlier. Does Branthwaite, even if it's a short-term measure, go left back?
A lot of people suggesting that. Yeah. I think, is that the thing though, Chris? Obviously, we've got Asnu, who we all think can play there, we know can play there. That's his natural position as a left back. Moyes saying he's not ready, but is Mikalenko's developments in many ways being hindered by the fact that he has had no competition, certainly in previous seasons? It's not even almost, it is. No matter how bad or well he plays, he's in that team. No matter what, if he's fit, even if he's like 70, 80% fit. So there's no natural progression to me to say, well, if you're playing bad, you're out of that team. Now I know there's a number of positions that have been like that over the years. Effectively, if you've got no one to compete, you're in that team. I don't know how well or how much more Mikalenko's going to improve at this stage of his career, but is it a mentality thing? Mikalenko just knows, well, I'm in that team no matter what.
Yeah, competition for places can only going to be helpful, and like you said, he's for far too long he's not really had that, and you can say that could be the case now if Moyes genuinely believes Asnu's not ready. When he continues, he still hasn't got that competition for places. At least last year, he had Ashley Young who could play there. Wasn't necessarily a natural left back, but could do a job there. So he had Young the last couple of years, and then obviously he's been and gone now. But I remember under Lampard, was it Vinagre came and he did nothing. He hardly got a sniff. You didn't see much of him at all. So yeah, it's been the case for a number of years. It can't have probably helped Mikalenko that he hasn't had somebody pushing him for the shirt. And again, that goes back to my point about the contract. Even if you do. If the long-term plan is to upgrade in that position, which I think it should be, you don't want to lose Mikalenko for nothing, and you want to keep him as a squad option. So a player who I think cost about 17 million or something. Unless he does sign a new deal, you could be losing him for nothing come the summer. Because I mean, as it stands, he could sign a Bosman free transfer, a pre-contract with a foreign club today, tomorrow if you so wished. Obviously, I don't think they obviously fearing that at the moment. It's just an interesting one, given all the business that they have done. And James Garner's just obviously signed his new deal. Where we're up to in terms of Mikalenko, but yeah, can't have helped him that lack of competition. And if Moyes genuinely believes Asnu isn't physically ready, well, that remains the case.
Stephen Dyer said, so basically exactly where Mikalenko played yesterday, second half, and stank the gaff out after we went 3 at the back. Question mark. I don't know, that's a question. I don't know. That's the...
I thought he was actually comment. Better second half than the first. I thought he was very poor for first half. I think they were all better defensively second half.
Is the frustration, though, from the fans' point of view, where you've seen Asnu have that cameo against Sunderland, and obviously he made an impact because he won the penalty, and then effectively not bombed out of the team, but just not given a look in. I mean, if you'd actually go back and watch that Sunderland game when Asnu came on, he was obviously playing left back. He was playing left mid.
Yeah,
he wasn't the full back, but he did give the ball away a couple of times. But it's because he's trying to make something happen. He's not just being conservative. We were 1-0 down going out the cup. Moyes has obviously said, listen, you go in there and use your pace and do something, and he's managed to do that. He's obviously just going to have to, at some point, bite the bullet and play. I think, I don't know whether that's going to be this season. You know, if you've signed him for 8 million and you see him for the future, is it a case of just learning on the job? You know, are you going to make mistakes along the way? Whether that costs you goals, I don't know. But Moyes is trying to limit that exposure to him, I guess. I'm just trying to defend it a little bit. But I think there should be a case based on the Sunderland cameo that could he come on a little bit more now and have that like 10-15 minute impact on the left hand side and use his pace.
Might be the case, especially like you say in that more advanced role. Now that Grealish is injured, you know, it may
he's not using McNeil on the left, is he?
Yeah, well, quite. So yeah, could be the case that, you know, he gets little bits and pieces in that more advanced role, or rather than at full back, because maybe he thinks part of that thing with the physicality is defensive robustness. So it might be. But it's like last night, innit? Moyes said he didn't want to bring Branthwaite and Kiernan Dewsbury Hall on so early, but needs must. Maybe, you know, it all depends on how Everton have got. A lot of these games Everton have been in, you know, been sort of in the balance until late, isn't it? It's not like, you know, those sort of like, I call them the routine wins, like the Fulhams and the Forests at Hill Dickinson Stadium. Obviously Everton's last 2 home wins there. A lot of the matches haven't been like that, so maybe in Moyes' defence he hasn't felt that the opportunity was right. And to be fair, at Sunderland he was totally down to the bare bones. I mean, after him, he basically, was it Eli Campbell and Reece Welch came on, you know, who under normal circumstances wouldn't even be in the first team squad. So I don't know if it was a glowing endorsement to Asnu. It was almost like, well, he didn't have anyone else, and to be fair, he did all right and won the penalty. But yeah, I suppose we'll see how it goes between now and the end of the season with Grealish out.
Strong comment from Simon C, who says Mikalenko's become a liability in the team, just like McNeil. They won't take us to the next level we need to be at. Both need replacing ASAP.
Well, we say ASAP. I mean, realistically, that's a summer. I don't think, you know, you're going to go out. I mean, as much as we might want them to do this and think that'd be good, but I can't imagine they're getting ready-made replacements in this last week of the winter transfer window. So I think you're talking about the summer, really, and that's fair enough. But yeah, ASAP. I mean, it's like people seem to, I mean, look at what other business is being done or not done, as the case may be. It might be now in the final days of the window. Obviously, you noticed Moyes was asked last night about potential deals, and he said we might know something the next day or two. So maybe there's something in the pipeline, but it might be the old domino effect that things sort of fall into place in the latter stages of the window. But very few teams at this level, it's not like maybe it was maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and, you know, remember when Sky Sports were all over it, and it was a big thing having, you know, the fans there at the training ground on deadline day, not just in the summer but the winter window. It's part of that is obviously Everton's PSR issues. The football financial landscape has changed, but there's not like there's loads of deals being done now. So it's all well and good saying, oh, people saying before McNeil, was it never play for Everton again? Mikalenko liabilities ASAP need replacing. Well, you know, we can all say these things, but, you know, in the real world, it's not so simple. Obviously, it's a hugely high finance business, and you're probably looking at the summer before those changes can be implemented.
KD Toffeeman says the transition from defence to attack is so lacklustre. We need pace this summer, and it must, in capitals, be addressed.
It has been an issue, hasn't it? The pace, and I think it's something that David Moyes has wanted to inject into the side. But like you say, I think Angus Kinnear was actually asked about this. Somebody was joking with him, saying about, do you not have a pace filter when it comes to your recruitment and stuff like that? But yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously you've got to have more than just pace. You can't just like sign Usain Bolt. But yeah, it would be helpful, wouldn't it, having that sort of dimension within the team. And to be fair, I think David Moyes would like that. But it's all again is who they can get.
The Blue said, we need to get back to basics and get balls into the box. Asnu left wing offers more than McNeil. I mean, I'll come in on that one. I don't necessarily disagree. However, if you're going to get balls into the box, you need men in the box because it's just going to be too easy to defend against if it's just Tierney or Barry. And it's going to have to be the most pinpoint accurate cross ever, and Barry's going to have to fight off about 3 or 4 defenders. So the players that you're looking at getting in the box, if we're going to do that, are what? Kieran Dewsbury Hall, Malin Roll, if he plays, Idrissa Gueye, who's not the tallest. So I watched him. I don't know if you watched the West Ham game on Saturday where they played Sunderland. Now, I'm not advocating in any way for us to start playing like West Ham, but their first goal came from a cross in the box, and it was a decent cross, and it literally went to a West Ham player. Now, you can argue all day whether the cross was perfectly meant for that West Ham player or it was just a hopeful ball into the box, but it was a good cross nevertheless. They had about 4 or 5 players in the box, West Ham. Yeah, you know, compared to probably like Sunderland's 4 or 5 as well. Do we get enough players in the box, do you think, when we're crossing the ball in? I don't think we do.
Perhaps not. It's been an issue for a long time, especially I suppose now Abdoulaye Doucouré's not there either. In terms of, that was the problem. I mean, people talking about going back to Calvert-Lewin now. Obviously, he scored more goals for Leeds this season than he did in any of his last 4 seasons at Everton. That the Everton strikers have often been isolated, whoever that is, whether it's DCL, whether it's Beto, whether it's Barry, whoever. That's often been the case with Props, doesn't. But I just think, going back to in terms of somebody saying Asnu offers more than McNeil, what is this based on? Is this based on him getting about a brief run out against Sunderland and he won a penalty? I mean, when have these people seen Adam Asnu playing? Were they scouring through tapes of, I don't know, La Liga last season when he got relegated, didn't he, in Spain last year, or from his youth games at Bayern Munich? I don't know what they're saying. I mean, you might think McNeil's rubbish. You might say he's totally unsuited to playing on the right wing. I mean, I don't think he's too... You know, he's as left-footed as they come, so I'm not so sure about playing him on the right wing. But at the end of the day, he's a Premier League... He's a proven Premier League player who's played over 200 senior matches. So for somebody to say Adam Asnu's offers more because he won a penalty, some people thought it was a dodgy penalty against Sunderland, I'm not too sure where these super scouts are coming from with these shouts.
George Keeley says, we must have the slowest attack in the league. We have Barry, who has hit form. Why can't we cross?
Good point, because like you're saying, you know, Idrissa Gueye showing him how it's done, and you know, he was given that chance last night, and he took it, and like I said, he had very few chances overall. Probably only had the other one that Darlow clawed away in the whole game. So yeah, it's a decent point, isn't it? You want to be getting those crosses in, the ammunition for the front man, especially now that he's looking more confident and looking like he can take some of those chances.
Danny Church says, gutted with the first half last night. Second half was miles better. When we went 3 at the back, Dibblin looking better. Wish he'd scored, and Barry was awesome again. And do you think now? I think we did have this. I asked this question the other day, but what's a good return now for Barry? He's on 5, I think, is it right? So with the remaining games of the season left, would you be looking the fact that he is in a bit of form? Double figures.
I said double figures, didn't I? Last week. I did say double figures last week. So yeah, I mean, don't get ahead of myself now. But yeah, that's realistic now, isn't it? It's he's just over half the season gone now, and obviously after his slow start, he's halfway there now. So yeah, I think that's what we should be aiming for.
Nathan Clear thinks we should go with Branthwaite as the left back, which I am not opposed to. I think it would give competition for place for Mikalenko, and you're not just in the team even if you're poor. He's played there in the past. I don't want to be like rewriting history. I don't know whether he's had some of his best games for Everton as a left back. I know he can.
He's played a couple of times. He has played them, not much. Yeah.
He can get up and down the pitch. I don't think there's any question about that. He's obviously a big unit, isn't he? Yeah. Effectively, we had a Jake O'Brien doing the exact same thing, and we can argue in the face who's better, but I don't know. It's an option. It's probably an option.
It is interesting how we've been going, Jake O'Brien, don't stick him back at right back. He's a natural centre back, and now we're all going, we'll solve the left back. We can get Branthwaite back in the team by putting him at left back. It is kind of ironic. He's saying no. Maybe do like a Walter Smith, a 4 centre backs, have Branthwaite at left back, and Jake O'Brien going back to right back. There is an increasing clamour to do this because like we said, Mikalenko struggling, and it's a way of getting Branthwaite back in the team and having those other central defenders in the team. What I liked from him last night, obviously he started off as on the left-hand side of a three, and then they finished in the flat back four again. He brings an entire new dimension to the play. Not only is he physically robust, as you've said, he's a physically imposing unit of a man, but that's the reason why he's so highly rated and so highly valued, is he combines that with his ability on the ball. There's nobody got that confidence in possession amongst Everton's other defenders the way Jarrod Branthwaite is, and the way he can confidently stride out of defence and link it to the midfield or to the attack as well. He can stroll out with the ball. I mean,
you noticed the difference straight away, didn't you?
It's a totally different dimension what they've not had all season, because you've got to remember, for all the moans and groans or the observations about where Everton are or where they could be, they've not had their most valuable player for the entire first half of the season. They've been knocked out the FA Cup before he's had a chance to kick a ball. So that's a huge thing. He's coming back. Let's just, fingers crossed. Is this wood? I don't know. Touch that. That he stays fit now, because it's stop-start pre-season. Played the first two friendlies at Accrington Stanley and Blackburn. Then he missed a trip to the USA. Came back for the Roma friendly. Got injured again. Virgil coming back in October. Broke down again, had to have the surgical procedure. It's been a hugely frustrating time after he signed the new 5-year deal last summer. But you could say, like you said, from the start, the way he's strolling, the way he's carrying that ball out of defence, and the way he can sort of link things up, it just changes the whole way Everton play. So that's another huge plus point for having Jarrod Branthwaite back fit, and let's just hope he can sort of stay fit. But it will be an intriguing one going forward. I understand where these people are coming from, definitely with the left-back shouts, but it is just quite humorous how we've saying, you can't put, Jacob Brown's got to stay in his natural position now, but then all of a sudden we're saying Branthwaite for left back.
A number of people have pointed out in the comments that Branthwaite played left back at one point and got sent off. I got better memory than me.
Was that the Brentford one? That was the only time I remember him getting sent off. I don't know. The one before Palace, he got sent off against Brentford. Did he play left back? That I'm not sure. I was actually in a plane at that time. I was flying to Orlando and landed and was met with that news that Everton had lost, and obviously everything was going to be on the Palace game.
There's a response from Simon to you, McNeil. We're getting loads of comments on McNeil's not good enough, and I think, to be fair, we've made our point perfectly clear. We're trying to be balanced. He was poor on Monday night, but he is being played out of position. Whether you think that's the case with defence, I don't know, but he was poor and he deserved to be hooked. I think that's all we can say on that. But Simon says, McNeil is a proven Premier League player at the low end of the table. Our standards should be better than that. That's half the problem. People are willing to accept poor standards like that.
Yeah, I said that Everton should be looking to upgrade, and in the terms of, like you said, with Mykolenko as well, that they are obviously trying to get back to where David Moyes and where the vast majority of the fans think that they should be. But it's just this idea that Adam Asnou is somehow better because he won a penalty against Sunderland. What's it based on? Maybe in time, maybe in the years to come, Adam Asnou might be a world beater. But just right now, what are these people basing these on? Like I said, it's fair enough. You say he's totally unsuited to being on the right wing, and that's one for David Moyes to answer for us all, really. But when he's playing in his natural position on the left wing, he does have a fair pedigree. Whether you say fair enough is that lower end of the Premier League, probably is, isn't it? He got relegated at Burnley before he came to Everton. But for somebody to say all of a sudden Asnou's better than McNeil, what's that actually based on? Maybe in the fullness of time it would be proven the case. But you're basically saying this lad who's been signed as a left back and isn't good enough to, because at the end of the day, Moyes sees him in training every day. Somebody who's been a young left back who can't get a game ahead of Mykolenko is a better left wing option than McNeil. Whatever you think of McNeil as a right winger, that I'm not too sure where that sort of opinion's coming from.
It's a mad one though, isn't it? Because in effect, based on what Moyes is deciding to do with the team, McNeil's not competing with Asnou for the place in the team because McNeil's on the right and Asnou would predominantly play on the left. So it's a matter. I'm a bit confused about the whole argument, really.
Yeah.
Right, last one on McNeil. Nathan Clare says, just play Diblin. He is the future like Barry. Look at Barry now. He's improved by getting minutes, which I agree with on that. But I have called for Diblin to play numerous times, and when he has, other than probably the Forest game away from home, where he had a decent game.
And he was decent at Burnley.
He hasn't. He's flattered to deceive, hasn't he? He's been poor. He was poor against. Was it Brentford?
Yeah, and did he get hooked against Palace earlier in the season as well? And that was sort of the turnaround.
So he has been given opportunities to start. I don't know. Are we playing? I don't really. Is he even a winger, Diblin? Do you think? Are we throwing like a bit of a grenade in there? I'm sure he obviously can play on the right. He likes to cut inside, but. Yeah,
he was predominantly a right winger for Southampton, but then I saw comments from their old manager Russell Martin, who also he's a bit of maybe guilty of hyperbole in terms of building him up. He's saying he's the attributes he's seldom seen in a British player for years, and I think it's comparing him to Gascoigne and all kinds. But what he was saying is that although as at 19 or whatever he is now, he's going to turn 20, isn't he soon? That he was starting out as a right winger. Again, he's a bit like he's like McNeil in terms of him being an inverted winger, but obviously he's far more two-footed than McNeil, as most players are. But he felt, going back to Russell Martin, that he felt that ultimately long term he saw Diblin end up as an 8. So that one's a curious one.
I said last one on McNeil, and I feel like I've caught myself into a situation here with McNeil.
Painted yourself into a corner or something.
I'm not defending him, and I know we're just trying to be balanced. But Emma says right now, what is Dwight McNeil offering? At least give the lad a chance. Obviously referring to Diblin. What I'd say on that, I don't want to repeat myself. He was poor last night and he deserved to be hooked, but he provided the assist for James Garner against Nottingham Forest, and he also had the shot which led to the goal that Tieno Barry scored against Aston Villa. Right, yeah. Now, that's their factual issues, that they're factual things.
So that's what he's offering, isn't it?
Contributed to the goal. Yeah. There's a bigger picture for me than this, and there's a bigger argument. You don't necessarily need to play Dwight McNeil every game, really. I'm surprised how much Moyes has actually played him, but I think is he better? Is he a better player in that current crop of players that we've got to play away from home when we don't necessarily need the ball, when he doesn't need to? The emphasis isn't on him to create chances and probably score goals, even though he is the winger. So I think that's probably, I'm trying to get in Moyes' head and see that's where he's in the team. But at home, it is a completely different situation. And playing him on the right wing at home when the expectation there is for Everton to get on the ball and create things up, and it's quite clearly not working, and quite clearly it was visible in his performance yesterday. He was dreadful. It was absolutely dreadful. Hence why I gave him a 3 and Chris gave him a 5.
And the manager took him off.
Low scores, so no one's questioning that. But to say he hasn't contributed since he's come back is wrong, in my opinion. And it's not even an opinion, it's factual. Okay. Any final thoughts before we finish off?
Just on a sour note, but I noticed from the 1878s there was some of the flags have been gone missing. It's not good, is it? Really. Saying it's quite obvious in the holders. I mean, I've not got up close to these flags, but obviously I've seen them from our position at the top of the West Stand in the press box. But saying it's quite obvious that they're not to be taken home. They're in holders or attached or whatever. The way they are, and they said it's not kids who've done it. People have seen this. Apparently, it was grown men. So that's not good to hear. That all the work that the 1878s do in terms of creating these flags and banners, and obviously the huge tifo as well. They're all volunteers themselves, and don't want to hear that. And obviously we're getting the usual stuff of the fan bases. I've noticed online today picking up on that, and obviously they're getting the stereotypes about saying into people in Liverpool and stuff like that. So you don't want to be hearing stuff about fellow Evertonians doing stuff like that. So don't want to hear that. So hopefully they all get returned, because that you don't want to be all the efforts that the 1878s put, and then you hear stories like this. It's not good. So hopefully they'll find their way back to their correct place.
Yeah, I did see that tweet. So thanks for bringing that up. Obviously worth mentioning to people not to take the flags home with them.
Yeah,
it's silly, really. Isn't it?
So they say it's not good, is it? And all the time and effort that people and cost obviously that goes into this. So yeah, but I think we just to finish on, as I said, I don't want to feel as the parting shot. Let's be a bit more positive in that. Okay, we probably were all hoping that he'd get back to winning ways at Hill Dickinson Stadium last night, and they didn't. But like we said, after such a poor first half, at least it was much improved. And hopefully, obviously, we'll wait to see. David Moyes said that there might be more clarity on Jack Grealish. I suspect that's not going to be good news, obviously, of how long he's out. But the cavalry is on the horizon now in terms of Branthwaite was back, Kiernan Dewsbury Hall was back, Charlie Alcaraz was also on the bench again last night. So hopefully the bigger picture, and obviously Tierno Barry scored again. So there's still going into that second half of the season with a decent amount of confidence that they can make something of this season. Still think they'll be hard pushed to make Europe, but they're in the mix. They're in the conversation. So I think there's still a lot of positives that we can hopefully look forward to in the second half of the season.
Okay, well, hopefully I'm going to be back with Conor O'Neill for the usual Wednesday show. I just need to confirm that he is available for that. If we are back, we are going to be live on the Royal Blue YouTube channel at 12 o'clock. And then we'll have the usual Friday show, which will preview Everton's game or Everton's trip to Brighton. You and Joe off down there?
Brighton breezy, yeah. We'll have to make sure we get down there in decent time, and obviously safe travels for all those Evertonians. Although it's been a reasonably happy hunting ground for the Blues in recent years. Obviously, Moyes got his first of his 10 away wins since coming back around this time last year. So
and it's away from home. So
yeah.
I think Brighton are a team who could potentially play into our hands the way they like to get on the ball. I don't know.
Yeah. That's something. A bit more this eagle from Ndai.
Yeah. Okay. As always, give us a like and subscribe to the channel and drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. We will finish it there, so enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week. I've been joined by Chris Beesley, I've been Ian Croll, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.